You know, it's pretty wild how a single short video clip can just explode online. That's exactly what happened here. A quick scene from an airport, just showing a few ICE agents, became this huge flashpoint for a massive political debate, but probably not for the reasons you're thinking. So let's unpack how this one little video spiraled into such a complex controversy.
And this is where things get interesting. The first reactions popping up online were not at all what you'd expect. Instead of anger or politics, you had this wave of comments, just like this one. A lot of black women were pointing out that the agents, who were mostly black men, looked good. It was just surprisingly lighthearted.
Yeah, that fun, lighthearted vibe, it didn't stick around for long. What started out with some playful compliments quickly twisted into a really serious, heated argument online. And it just exposed some deep, deep divisions and brought out accusations from every corner.
So to really get a handle on how this all blew up, we're going to zero in on a viral response from one particular YouTube channel, A Righteous Perspective. It's important to note what you're about to hear is just a neutral breakdown of their specific argument and how they saw the whole situation.
Okay, so the video from A Righteous Perspective kicks things off by focusing on those first online comments, the positive ones about the agents. And this is actually a really crucial piece of the puzzle, because that surprising reaction is what sets the entire stage for the argument they're about to make.
The channel specifically pulled out phrases like, "he can TSA me," and "they some cutie patooties." I mean, you can tell the tone is just playful, right? But this reaction really stood out because it flew in the face of how ICE agents are usually portrayed in the media, which is often, pretty menacing.
All right, so after setting that scene, the channel makes a big pivot. This is where their argument really starts to take shape. They shift from those compliments to what they call a hypocritical backlash against these specific agents that started bubbling up from other parts of the internet.
And this quote right here, this is really the core of their accusation. The source directly calls out the critics. They're basically saying, look, if you're truly angry about law enforcement policies, then that anger should be consistent. It shouldn't just apply to this one group of guys you saw in an airport.
This chart kind of lays out their point visually. On the left, you've got the criticism aimed at the black ICE agents, and on the right, the source lists all these other law enforcement jobs held by black people, FBI, state troopers, local cops, you name it. And they're asking, why aren't people mad at them too? What's with the selective outrage?
So, what's their explanation for this? Well, the channel claims that seeing black and brown agents totally messes with a specific narrative, one they say is pushed by Democrats in the media, that ICE is just a white supremacist organization. In their view, these agents' very existence contradicted that story, and that's what triggered the backlash.
Then, the video zooms out a bit. It connects this whole airport incident to the wider political mood at the time. And specifically, they bring up a partial government shutdown that was going on, which meant a lot of federal workers, including TSA agents, weren't getting paid.
The source lays out a pretty clear sequence of events to back up their argument. First, the shutdown happens, and TSA agents go unpaid. Then they claim that Democrats intentionally refused to make a deal specifically to make American citizens hurt. After that, they point out that President Trump signed an order to get those TSA agents paid. So their final conclusion is that the Democrats were just playing political games.
And to really drive this point home, the video uses this quote, which they attribute to a Democratic politician. The source holds this up as proof, direct evidence, they say, of a deliberate strategy to hurt working Americans, as part of what they called a very awful political game. So you see how all these pieces are coming together? The reaction to the agents, the hypocrisy charge, the shutdown blame. It's all building to the source's biggest single claim that a massive political shift has happened in the United States.
And here it is. The source presents this quote as the smoking gun, a plain-as-day admission of the modern Democratic Party's true agenda. They argue this quote shows their number one priority is no longer American citizens, but undocumented immigrants.
This table basically puts their whole argument into a simple visual. They're contending that for a long time, black Americans were a top priority for the Democratic Party. But now they say that has changed. They have been replaced. The party's new main focus, according to the source, is on undocumented Americans.
And to give this idea some historical backup, the source says this isn't even a new thing. They bring up the work of an economist, Dr. Claude Anderson, who they say predicted this exact political shift all the way back in the 90s, this idea that black Americans would eventually be pushed to the side politically.
So the video doesn't just lay all this out and then end. Nope. After making its case, it wraps up with a direct appeal to the people watching, telling them to take specific actions based on everything they've just heard.
you can see they have a specific message for different groups in their audience. They're telling their black viewers to really think again about their political support. They're telling their white viewers to go share this perspective. And the big message for everyone is that, in their opinion, the Democratic Party isn't even trying to hide its priorities anymore.
And that's the final note a righteous perspective leaves its audience on. The video closes with this really provocative rhetorical question. It frames all the evidence they presented as this big moment of clarity. And it leaves the final judgment up to you, the viewer, asking you to decide for yourself.